The medium mech weight class is full of capable chassis in different variety of workhorse ways. And when it comes to clans with their omni-mechs, each mech is a veritable workhorse of different capabilities depending upon the omnipod set you're using. So let's take a look at the Nova. The Nova is a fantastic medium mech, one of my favorite medium mechs of the clans. I like it in its original classic look as well as this redesigned look that we first got in MechWarrior Online. And we're going to tackle a Reprime build because when you first gain access to the Nova, you only have access to the Prime Omnipod set. Yes, if you have the DLC, you will gain access to that Omnipod set as well. But that requires a DLC, and while I think the DLC is a fine thing to purchase, and I don't know why there's so much pushback on it, I'm not expecting everybody to have it to therefore make a build utilizing parts of it. So we're going to keep it Reprime, where we only make use of the Prime Omnipod set. That way, absolutely anybody could follow along and make this build for themselves if they wanted to. So, with that said, let's get to it. What's up, everybody? I'm James. Welcome to Mechanical Mayhem. And as I said, this is going to be a Reprime build for the Nova in its primary Omnipod set. As you can see, it's just the Prime Omnipod set. The Nova is a simplistic Omni-mech, more or less. It doesn't use fancy endosteel or fancy ferrofibrous armor, but it still gets the job done. And it's absolute beast in its primary configuration with 12 extended range medium lasers. It has so much firepower, it can't feasibly use it all the time in rapid succession. So, while I thoroughly enjoy the Nova Prime, we're going to reprime it for added survivability and better heat efficiency without adding any extra heat sinks. In fact, I took the double heat sinks from the arms and I put them in the left and right torso to make room for the most important thing we're doing here, which is armor. In order to have room for that, we have to shave some weight. So all I did was take the 12 ER medium lasers and replace them with ER small lasers. I'm channeling my MechWarrior 2 vibes back in the day. I used to have a bunch of SRM boats, not SRMs, well I did that, a bunch of small laser boats back in the day. So I'm a big fan of energy weapons. Lasers are one of my jams. My favorite is the ERPPC, but we're not looking at that here. What we're looking at instead is lasers, and we're going with the small laser. Now, the small laser is still clan tech. ER stands for extended range. It has a max range of 600 meters. In this game, that's a lot because we don't have a really good zoom yet. Either PGI will give it to us, hopefully in an update, or when mod support becomes available, we'll see it added from a mod. But until then, 600 meters is more than enough range for really kind of effective aiming gunfights for us because we as players don't have the sight to really get in accurate on something so far away. Yes, the medium laser has 300 more range at 900 meters. It also generates 4.8 heat, where the small laser only generates 1.75 heat. So we have shorter range, a couple less damage, or half the weight, and we generate a lot less heat. All that together makes the small laser a very viable boat build. Boat meaning pretty much all the same type, which is what the Nova Prime was for itself with mediums. Medium lasers and of course large lasers on top of that, but medium lasers start to get into the territory of burst damage, especially because the small laser can shoot much more quickly. So this is less damage but faster, so this is damage per second territory. There are pros and cons for each. We're not going to get into that here, just think of it that way. We're not quote-unquote downgrading, we're changing our damage philosophy. So with that said, we freed up 6 tons because it weighs half the amount, so we have 12 of them at half the weight, we have 6 tons to work with. Now we can't do anything with the legs, keep that in mind when you're getting shot at. But what we can do is mess with everything else. So left and right arm, left and right torso, the head and the center torso all get 1 ton of standard armor. The arms get it in half tons because that's just the way I worked with it. You don't have to do it that way. I don't know if there's necessarily an advantage to do it that way or not. But in any case, we have 6 tons of extra armor on this mech dispersed throughout, which means we're pretty healthy at 573 armor, as you can see. So weapon group wise, it has the stock weapon group. One arm is weapon group 1, the right arm is weapon group 2, but I added a third weapon group of all the lasers in chain fire. If you're going to have a lot of energy weapons, I recommend chain fire for 2 reasons. A, it's more efficient against turrets and light vehicles and aircraft and the like because you're not firing off a bajillion lasers at such an easy target. And even if you're firing at a mech, if you're getting a little spicy in the heat territory, a little too hot, instead of just not shooting at all, waiting for it to burn all the way down, the heat, or for your heat to dissipate all the way down, you can start chain firing here and there, which will let the heat dissipate a bit while still putting some damage downrange. So with that said, we're at 573 armor. Very impressive, because the standard Nova is 381 armor. So we're basically 1.5-ish times more armored up than the standard Nova. In fact, we have more armor than the Executioner, a 95-ton assault mech in its basic configuration, because we modified our Nova. Now, we're definitely tanky, but I wouldn't try to be super crazy tanky in terms of just taking all the damage, because we're still a medium mech, and some of our parts may be armored up, but it's not going to have potentially as much armor as heavier mechs might. So you still can have your armor be blown off, even though it's tankier. But we are still much more survivable than we were before, so it's still an absolute benefit to do this. With that said, let's go to the sim pod, and let's do the shooting range. Remember, with the shooting range, you are facing basically recruit level AI training dummy targets. They're going to take the most damage anything can take. Not because they're taking extra damage, but because they don't have any type of either damage reduction or extra health / armor, or whatever the case is, like AI do in campaigns, particularly when they are what's what I'm looking for? Particularly when they are in like veteran or elite status AI. So take the damage that we're doing with a grain of salt here, but it's still going to be a really good showcase into how capable the mech is at dishing out damage. How is it in terms of heat generation? How is it in terms of ammo economy? Like, how much damage are you doing versus how much ammo are you using, and so on. So it's still a good reference. Just don't take your damage numbers as gospel here, because they will vary. Typically, it'll take a bit more damage to take things out in the actual campaign. Anyways, we are right within we're pretty much right near our 600 meter max range. So if I zoom out, the only thing we can reliably make out is is the Atlas. There's Marauder there, but they blend in real nicely with the stone, which is a good showcase that, hey, camouflage just kind of work visually here. So good luck seeing the lighter stuff, right? The Atlas is big enough where we can kind of make it out, if you even knew it was there. So we'll take that shot, and we missed. So let's try again. There, we hit, but we hit the arm. We missed again. We're missing left and right. My point in doing this is not to showcase my poor shooting, but to showcase how hard it is to actually hit without zooming in. And even zooming in, we're only having the benefit because we're not really moving, they're not really moving, and we can do a lot better in our shooting. So, in terms of effective range, we are going to want to get a lot closer, just because we don't have the zoom capability. If we had the zoom capability that we have in MechWarrior Online potentiality, right, it would be a much different story, but we don't. So in terms of firing, we're going to want to get closer just for our capability being accurate. So as we can see, being this close, it's still 273 meters in terms of visuals. So you have to keep into effect, or keep in mind that, yeah, we're still dealing with some distance, but we can really pepper up the target really efficiently. We're inside of our effective range, so we're going to be dealing the absolute maximum damage potentiality of this build. Again, armor and health in terms of destroying the mech will vary in campaign, but this is giving me a good sense that we're able to fire pretty quick, as you noticed. And we're doing pretty respectable damage because we're spamming it with 12 lasers. Of course we will. But also notice the heat. Pay attention to the heat meter on the right side on the HUD there. I'm going to just hold down my 2 fire buttons. So I'm going to alpha strike. That's where you shoot everything. I'm just going to hold it down so it'll fire the moment it's ready. And we'll see how many shots it does, how many alpha strikes it does for us to overheat. So that's the first one. That's the second one. That's the third one. That's the fourth one. That's the fifth one. That's the sixth one. That's the seventh one. We have 8, 9. 9 Alpha Strikes. Ah, ah, ah. Sorry. Sesame Street kind of programmed to do that. Anyways, we did 9 Alpha Strikes. 9 blasting aways of 12 lasers a pop. That's a lot of shots, and we're definitely not going to do that in consecutive order like that in a real campaign environment. And even though we overheated, our heat dissipation is pretty stellar, so we're able to get back into the fight even after overheating. So we're doing pretty respectable damage. Again, these targets take the most damage of anything in the game, more or less, outside of earlier enemies and campaigns. So yeah, we're definitely a bit skewed in favor for looking awesome, but it's still doing really respectable damage. And in terms of having chain fire, we have it here for this situation. We can chain fire, just hold it down and it'll fire each laser, and then we can easily chain fire these aircraft, because we don't need that, right? We don't need that at all. We can just do it in a chain fire situation. So really heat efficient, the same movement and jump capabilities as the Nova Prime, because we are the Nova Prime, we're just reprimed. And this lets us take on some pretty heavy duty stuff. The Demolisher Heavy Tank is ridiculously tanky, which makes sense. 2 Alpha Strikes, more or less, take it out. That's pretty good, because those things are pretty tanky in the game. Obviously, it'll take probably 3 Alpha Strikes in a situation where you're actually encountering that in the campaign. But all this is just to showcase, yes, you're doing plenty of decent damage. We're very heat efficient doing it. And in terms of getting shot at back, we're going to be A-okay in that department, as long as you're not trying to face tank everything. Our biggest Achilles heel will be our legs, but even if we could armor them up, I would prefer the armor where it's at, because getting legged once is problematic for speed, but losing an arm or a side torso cuts our damage capability in half. You see what I mean? So that is why I would keep the armor more or less the same. In any case, here we are with the reprime of the Nova. At least one way you can do it. There's many different ways you can do this. So share yours in the comments if you do it differently. I just took it back to Mech Warrior 2 status for myself, kind of kicking into old school in the concept here. But you can do it in a variety of different ways if you so desired, because we have lots of potentiality with all of the energy weapon slots on the Prime build. It can't put a PPC in there, because each slot is a singular slot, not a double slot, so there's that, but we can still do a lot in here. Anyways, that's all I got for you. Thanks so much for tuning in and stopping by. Share your thoughts on the Reprime in the comment section down below. What would you do if something different? Share it. Let me know. Any questions, comments, requests, all that jazz, share it as well in the comment section. And consider subscribing if you've enjoyed yourself. And if you don't want to subscribe, that's cool. I'll be here maybe next time. So until next time, everybody, take care.